3, which is a long letter. And it's almost shocking how much information is in this one letter. But yet, I don't know about you, it's a huge encouragement to me. Some of them he rebuked, and he rebuked them very strongly, and he rebuked them very swiftly, and he even kind of said, listen, you don't have a whole lot of time, in fact, to come down here, we're going out to the woodshed and having a talk. But this church, he doesn't have anything bad to say. And while he is commending them, and while he is encouraging them, he takes a lot more time in encouraging them and in commending them than he does in some of the other churches where he has to be kind of blunt with them and kind of get in their face a little. This letter starts in verse 7, so let's read our whole passage together tonight. And to the angel of the church in Philadelphia write, these things saith he that is holy, he that is true, he that hath the key of David, he that openeth and no man shutteth, and shutteth and no man openeth. I know thy works. Behold, I have set before thee an open door, and no man can shut it. For thou hast a little strength, and hast kept my word, and hast not denied my name. Behold, I will make them of the synagogue of Satan, which say they are Jews and are not, but do lie. Behold, I will make them to come and worship before thy feet, and to know that I have loved thee. Because thou hast kept the word of my patience, I also will keep thee from the hour of temptation, which shall come upon all the world to try them that dwell upon the earth. Behold, I come quickly. Hold that fast which thou hast, that no man take thy crown. Him that overcometh will I make a pillar in the temple of my God, and he shall go no more out. And I will write upon him the name of my God, and the name of the city of my God, which is New Jerusalem, which cometh down out of heaven from my God, and I will write upon him my new name. He that hath an ear, let him hear what the Spirit saith unto the churches. It's about corporate prayer. Father, of all the churches that we study, this one has to be the most encouraging. And while they are small in number and somewhat small in strength, you have given them a great opportunity, and you have had much to command to say to them. And I trust that when it comes my turn to stand before you, I will hear, well done, thou good, faithful servant. Help us to be faithful. Help us to be discerning. Help us to be busy serving while it is still day. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. We don't have a whole lot of time to review because we still have, I know we spent all of last Sunday setting this up and talking about all the symbolism in how Jesus Christ approaches this church, because it's so different from the way that he has approached the previous 5. But he comes to them much differently. And what he says to them, significant city like some of these others are, they are on the edge of land that has been troublesome from volcanoes and earthquakes, and so there's been a lot of instability economically and things like that in the region. During some of the earthquakes, they used to go outside at night and sleep outside the city for fear that the city would collapse on them, and then they'd go back into the city during the day to be able to conduct their business. That'll be important when we see what he says to them here in a minute. But he starts in verse 8 through 10, and forgive me, but we're gonna skip around a little bit, okay? We're going to do the admirable qualities, and then we're going to do the awesome promises, and then we're going to go back and look at how he encourages them, all right? The admirable qualities first in 8 through 10. He tells them they have a little strength. And we started, I tried to introduce this last week when we ended, size and power. The world always judges by numbers. They get all bent out of shape over a mega church. I knew a young man when I went to school who went to church. They had like 4,000 or 5,000 people in his church. And I asked him, what do you do at the church? And he said, we just go to church. And I thought, I wonder how many service opportunities there are in a church that has 4,000 or 5,000 people. Now, when after I was saved, we switched and went to a church that had about 700 people in the morning morning service. A lot of people. We had 100 and some people in youth group. And so there were benefits of a big church. You get 10,000 people going to church, there's not a whole lot of people know your name. I don't think the pastor lines up at the door and shakes 10,000 people's hands and greet, they probably don't do, we're going to take a minute and meet and greet everybody. We're taking an hour. So there are some benefits to you have. Everything's about measurement. And I understand that because it is important to know if you're making progress and if you're growing. But if you think about it for just a minute, some of the greatest heroes of the faith in the Bible would have been fired if they were in modern ministry. Right? How many converts did Noah have? After how many years of preaching? Can you imagine if he was on the board of a modern missions movement? They'd be yanking him off the field in no time flat. Somebody'd be going out there to talk to him and say, what in the world's going on here, brother? Daniel. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Listen, we just can't have the name of our thing being associated with getting thrown in the fiery furnace. Now, y'all are going to have to back it down a little bit. So here is a church that he is commending them, and he is saying, you might not be a mega church, and maybe there's not a whole lot seems that's going on, but what he does tell them is, you have an awesome power and opportunity. Now, go with me real quickly to 2 Corinthians chapter 12. This is an important verse. Verses 9 and 10 of 2 Corinthians chapter 12. And he said unto me, my grace is sufficient for thee, for my strength is made perfect in weakness. This is God's answer to Paul when he asked him to remove his thorn in the flesh. Most gladly, therefore, will I rather glory in my infirmities, that the power of Christ may rest upon me. Therefore I take pleasure in infirmities and reproaches and necessities and persecutions and distresses for Christ's sake. For when I am weak, then am I strong. And a little bit later we might turn to some other verses. So it might not be a big church, but think about this. This is right on the heels of Sardis, who was a dead church. So at least they have something still going on. And sometimes when you're small, it's hard to fight off frustration. It's easy to look at numbers and say, well, that church over there had 200 and some kids in their vacation Bible school, and this church over here has such and such, and this church over here has. Jesus is writing to them, and he's saying, listen, you have an opportunity. And it's not Sardis' opportunity, and it's not Smyrna's opportunity, and it's not Laodicea's opportunity. It's Philadelphia's opportunity. And you have a little strength. Now my question is, what are you going to do with the little strength that I have given you? A little bit later we'll talk about the open door that is laid before them. He goes on with another phrase here that is really important. It says, you have kept my word. Now, we know in some of the other churches that you've had different groups that have been coming in. We've had the rebuke of a church who allowed Jezebel to teach and to preach in their midst and who was causing some problems. We have seen the Nicolaitans at 2 different churches now. And this is the second church we're going to hear about, the synagogue of Satan. And so there is a lot of problems going on with false doctrine during this time period throughout Asia Minor. And he's writing to them and he's saying, listen, never underestimate the power of keeping my word. What separates us from anyone else in the world? Anyone can say that they are a Christian. But when the rubber meets the road, do you live like it in your daily decision making? And he commends them that they are obedient. When you are obedient to something, you value it, you treasure it, and you defend it. If you don't see the value of God's word, then it's no big deal that people go on there and trash it all the time. Real quickly, let's go to John chapter 14. John chapter 14, verses 23 and 24. Jesus answered and said unto him, If a man love me, he will keep my words, and my Father will love him, and we will come unto him and make our abode with him. He that loveth me not, keepeth not my sayings. And the word which ye hear is not mine, but the Father which sent me. Go over one chapter, chapter 15, and look at verses 13 and 14. Greater love hath no man than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends. Well, who are your friends? Ye are my friends, if ye do whatsoever I command you. Do you see how big a commendation this is to the church of Philadelphia? By the way, if we just wanted to park here for a while, we probably could do 2 Sundays right here. Because Jesus Christ all the time was dealing with people, and he was constantly being questioned, and he was saying, listen, if you love me, then you will obey me. And if you don't obey me, then you prove that you don't love me. So when he's writing to the church of Philadelphia, he's saying, we got churches spread out all through Asia Minor. And these folks are going off the deep end with doctrine, and these folks are allowing somebody to teach that shouldn't, and these folks they're dead. In Philadelphia, you look at the church roll and you get all bent out of shape because you're not as big as some of these others. But I got to tell you, you have a little strength, and you've kept my word. When I look down on you, there is no question that you love me. Just a little bit later tonight, we're going to see that he's going to turn around and reciprocate very publicly. Very, very important statement, even though it seems kind of a small, insignificant thing. It is a pretty brazen way of telling them how much he appreciates their obedience. I've said before, the open door will come back. You have a little strength, you have kept my word, and the third one, you have not denied my name. Now, when the Word of God is applicable in my personal life, when it is applicable in my relationships, when it's applicable in my business, and when I am using the power of that word in evangelism, then when somebody comes and they question me, and they're kind of, threatening and getting in your face and asking you, will you deny Jesus Christ? How in the world could you deny someone that is so intricate a part of every aspect of your life? A couple of these churches, we have seen the persecution that comes from emperor worship. And what happens is, when they really wanted to, and it kind of depended on local government on this. In some places it wasn't that bad, in some places it was really bad. But once a year you were supposed to come and you were supposed to participate in the sacrifice for emperor worship. And in order to do that, they'd line everybody up and they would point blank ask you right there in public in front of everybody, would you renounce Jesus Christ and admit to worshiping Caesar? And you either did or you didn't. And we've studied some churches that were having problems with that. He is writing to them in Philadelphia and he's saying, listen, when they point a gun at your head, when they bring you out before the assembly, when you're standing there before the judge, when you're gathered in the marketplace and a crowd gathers and they're like, that's the guy right there who won't do. Every time there was a public opportunity and someone asked them, they refused to deny the name of Jesus Christ. Turn with me, if you will, to Revelation 14:12. Here is the patience of the saints. Here are they that keep the commandments of God and the faith of Jesus. Interesting. The patience of the saints. What is he talking about? They could wait in hours and hours and hours and hours for nothing. No, what they're talking about are those folks that over and over and over and over again had to endure suffering in whatever form. And they patiently endured. That's what he's talking about. Go back to chapter 3. He has another one in verse 10. I know, we're skipping a whole verse and it's probably killing you. You're going to be, hold on. because thou hast kept the word of my patience. You say, what in the world is the word of their patience? This is that patient endurance of trials. I want to turn real quickly to three different verses because I want you to see that this was a pretty common theme. Matthew chapter 10, verse 22. And I know it's a lot of turning. If you can't get there, it's all right. But I'm trying to hurry because we got a long way to go. I'm dyslexic. I'm at 22:10. Matthew chapter 10, verse 22. And ye shall be hated of all men for my name's sake, but he that endureth to the end shall be. Okay, keep that in mind. Go to Hebrews chapter 12. Hebrews chapter 12. Verses 2 through 4. Looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith. What was his example? Who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and is set down at the right hand of the throne of God. For consider him that endured such contradiction of sinners against himself, lest ye be wearied and faint in your minds. Now hold on right there, and then we'll finish up here in just a second. When we read verse 3, we don't talk like that. What in the world is a contradiction of sinners against himself? We're getting ready to get there in Sunday school. A week or two, we're going to have Lot in trouble, and they're going to go and haul him out. And if you would jump to the 5th chapter, it would say, and just Lot vexed his soul daily with the condition that was in Sodom. You have a righteous man who is continually making poor decisions. He eventually loses his family. He loses all his goods. He loses his fame, his fortune, everything. All of the things that he held dear when he stood on that mountain and said, okay, Abraham, you take the mountain, I'm taking the nice pasture land. Everything in his mind that he valued, he eventually lost in Sodom. And it says, the lifestyle of the folks around him vexed his soul. Can you imagine a holy, righteous, perfect Son of God living for 33 and a half years walking on this earth? Can you imagine the contradiction of sinners against him on a daily basis? Can you imagine them coming up to him and challenging him about his authority or about his doctrine? Can you imagine them questioning why he has the right to heal somebody on the Sabbath day? Can you imagine all of the things that he dealt with? Whom do you say that I am? When all kinds of people are running around blaspheming. And yet he patiently endured. Because he enjoyed it? No. Did he enjoy the cross? No. Look at verse 4. Ye have not resisted unto blood, striving against sin. Now, they're encouraging the Hebrew here, and as he is writing this, he is saying, listen, I understand that it's bad. But think about the example of Jesus Christ and all the things that he patiently endured during his life and during his ministry. And think about this. You have not yet been called to resist unto blood. They're not shedding your blood yet. Now, for a lot of people, that's happened, but it hasn't happened here. And he's saying, keep on with perseverance, even if it starts costing you blood. At what level do you, enough is enough. I'm renouncing Jesus Christ and I'm out of here. Is it jail? Is it somebody making fun of you? Is it, or would you be faithful even if they started shedding blood? What's he telling the church here in Philadelphia in Revelation 3:10? What he's telling them is simple. He's saying, don't get worked up. Wait it out. Wait it out. Wait it out. You were under a government of sinners. You were in a church of sinners. You were in a community of sinners. But if you patiently endure to the end, your prize is eternal life. Now, he makes them some pretty awesome promises, and we skipped one already back in verse, we'll skip a couple, back in verse 8. I know thy works, behold, I have set before thee an open door. You say, what is the big deal about an open door? It's kind of simple. When you want to walk from one room to the other, you go through what? An open door. Been here 2 years, and every once in a while, those doors still surprise me. I keep forgetting that they're batwing and that they swing both ways. And the other day, I let it go, and then somebody got my attention, and I turned around, and here was a door swinging right back again, almost nailed me right in the nose. It's easy to see what's on the other side of an open door. It's easy to go through an open door. It's a little bit more difficult to go through a closed door or to know what's on the other side of a closed door. And what he is saying here is most of the time in Scripture, when you talk about an open door, you are talking about an opportunity for service. And if you remember, we're talking about the person who said, listen, I'm the one that's in control. I have the keys of David here. Can open and no man shutteth, and I shutteth and no man can open. I control opportunities. And so, remembering that that's the person who is writing the letter to them, he is making them this incredible promise. And he says, I have set before you an open door. It doesn't say I set before Smyrna an open door, or Laodicea, or any of the others. He says, Philadelphia, you might be small, but I, the one who controls opportunities, have given you an opportunity. And I want to know what you are going to do with it. You have the freedom to evangelize. You might be persecuted for it, but I've given you the freedom to evangelize. Effective service is not about size. Remember, he said you have a little strength. It is about availability, and it's about dependability. There isn't any sense in putting an open door before a dead church. What happens to the opportunity? It's wasted. So while they might be small in number, or while they might be small in strength, they are still capable of doing something, and Jesus Christ says, I believe in you, and I'm giving you this opportunity. Let's go to 1 Corinthians chapter 1. 1 Corinthians chapter 1. Starting at verse 26. For you see your calling, brethren, how that not many wise men after the flesh, not many mighty, not many noble are called. But God hath chosen the foolish things of the world to confound the wise. And God hath chosen the weak things of the world to confound the things which are mighty. And base things of the world, and things which are despised, hath God chosen, yea, and things which are not, to bring to naught things that are, that no flesh should glory in his presence. Now listen, if this tiny church of Philadelphia that's struggling, and they're having some persecution, but they're faithful and they're loyal and they're doing what they're supposed to do, when they evangelize their region, who gets the glory? I mean, you expect that a huge mega church would accomplish something, but a little podunk country church, what are they supposed to accomplish? Effectiveness isn't based on size. He says he uses the base things. He even uses the despised things. And that describes the church of Philadelphia, because you have all these folks that are looked down on for their belief. And yet at the end, when he is going to commend them, he is going to say, eventually they're going to realize what you had. Go to 2 Corinthians 4:7. And then just because I mean, we're going to turn back to 1 Corinthians, but that's okay. 2 Corinthians 4:7. But we have this treasure in earthen vessels, that the excellency of the power may be of God and not of us. Have you ever wondered why in the world he entrusted us with the gospel? I mean, the greatest thing that has ever happened to this world, and he entrusted it to us. Incredible. You say, why? Because as bubbling as we are, and as mixed up as we get, and as much as we fail Him, when He works through us, it's obvious that it's not of me. It has to be of Him. Who else could take a kid that wouldn't even get up in front of his youth group and hardly talk to people in his school and make a pastor out of him? Are you kidding me? We're going to talk about this when we get to heaven. There's other things I could have done. You look at it and you say, but I can't do. Well, maybe you don't feel like you can, and maybe you don't feel like you're gifted. But when an opportunity is placed before you, it's your opportunity. And sometimes you say, well, so-and-so would be better at leading this kid, or so-and-so would be better at dealing with this neighbor, or so-and-so would be better at teaching this class. But listen, God didn't give so-and-so the door of opportunity. He gave it to you, and He gave it to Philadelphia, and He expects you to use it and do the most with it. What an incredible statement he's doing. Paul knew exactly what he was talking about because he is pretty familiar. 2 Corinthians 2:12. Paul says, furthermore, when I came to Troas to preach Christ's gospel, and a door was opened unto me of the Lord. You say, what happens? Well, he gets to Troas. He's not sure what's going on. They're praying, and when he gets there, he realizes, wow, wait a minute, this place is wide open. Look at the start of the next verse. I had no rest in my spirit. Why? Man, this guy is fired up. People are coming to Jesus Christ. The gospel's being spread. He's starting churches. Go to 1 Corinthians 16. Not the only time it happened. Verses 8 and 9. But I will tarry at Ephesus until Pentecost, for a great door and effectual is opened unto me, and there are many adversaries. He spent a long time in Ephesus. You say, why did he spend such a great time at Ephesus? Because every time he thought he was going to pack up and leave for Ephesus, there was another open door, and there was so much more ministry to do, and so many more pastors to train, and so many more churches to work on, and so much more. And every time he thinks he's going somewhere else, he's like, nope, I'm going to stay here at Ephesus until Pentecost. Why? Because it's wide open. I can't leave now. I've been missing this fantastic opportunity. Who knows when the door's going to close? Colossians 4:2 and 3. We won't turn there. Another example. And then when he is writing to young Timothy, and he is at the end of his life, go to 2 Timothy chapter 4. Because now it is Timothy's turn. I charge thee therefore before God and the Lord Jesus Christ, who shall judge the quick and the dead, and is appearing in his kingdom. Do you see what he's doing? He's saying when Jesus Christ comes back, you're going to be standing before him, Timothy. And when you realize that, take advantage of the opportunity he has given you. Preach the word, be instant in season, out of season, reprove, rebuke, exhort with all long-suffering and doctrine. For the time will come when the door won't be open anymore. They will not endure sound doctrine, but after their own lusts they shall heap to themselves teachers having itching ears. And they shall turn away their ears from the truth, and shall be turned unto fables. But watch thou in all things, endure afflictions, do the work of an evangelist, make full proof of thy ministry. Take advantage of the door, Timothy, while it's open. For I am now ready to be offered, and the time of my departure is at hand. My door's closed. I'm not going to be around anymore, Timothy. Somebody else is going to have to be looking for the open doors, and is going to have to take advantage of the opportunities, and we're going to have to minister. What an awesome promise. Go back to Revelation chapter 3. Second one is found in verse 9. By the way, he says, I've set the opportunity before you, and no man can shut it. I control those opportunities. He also controls the results. Verse 9, weird phrase. Behold, I will make them of the synagogue of Satan, which say they are Jews and not, but do lie. Behold, I will make them to come and worship before thy feet, and to know that I have loved thee. The synagogue of Satan. Hostility hostility from unbelieving Jews. This is the second church in 7 that we have seen this phrase, the synagogue of Satan. It has always been coupled with persecution. Smyrna was the other one, heavily persecuted church. Basically, what he is saying is, if you are not for God and you are not of God, then you must be of whom? So it's interesting that these people are walking around and they are claiming to be Jews, and they're all excited because they're children of Abraham and they're God's children. But he doesn't say anything like that. He says they are actually of the church of Satan. Listen, when reality hits, you're either of God or you're not. You're of your father, the devil. Racially, ceremonially, culturally, they're Jews. And we don't have time to turn there. We already did when we were studying Smyrna. In Romans 9, 6, and 7, and Romans 2, 28, 29, he talks to them and he challenges them and he says, listen, they are Jews which aren't Jews. Well, are they Jews or aren't they Jews? No, that's not what he's saying. What he's saying is they walk, talk, act, look like Jews, but they're not. Because their heart is anything but Jewish. They're not a child of God in any way, shape, or form. You ever wonder how somebody can stand there and say that they're a pastor and then they pray for abortion and they do all these things and they support the homosexual agenda? You say, what in the world's going on? They're not Christian. They're simply not. They don't take God at His word. They don't believe what He says. They don't trust in the authority of God's word. You can't stand before people and say, well, Jesus never said that He didn't believe in homosexuality. He used the warning of Sodom and Gomorrah in His teaching. Unbelievable. Just unbelievable what some people can claim to be and then turn around and live completely different. And Jesus Christ is calling these folks out, and He is commending the church at the same time because He says you're staying faithful in the midst of it. So you have these folks, but what's really interesting is, notice what happens way down the road. Right now, you're dealing with these folks at the synagogue of Satan, and they say they're Jews, but they don't act like Jews. They lie. Behold, I, the guy who holds the keys of David, the one who opens and you can't close, the one who closes and you can't open, I will make them to come and worship before thy feet, and to know that I have loved thee. Now, that is a really interesting phrase, come and worship before thy feet. Wish we had the time, but we'd be here all next Sunday trying to figure out here, finish Philadelphia, if we did. Isaiah 45:14, Isaiah 49:23, and Isaiah 60:14, all three passages talk about the nations coming and bowing at the feet. All three of them. It is a picture of total defeat. It is a picture of humility. You wanted to show that you were beaten by someone when the king or the general or whoever it was that was responsible for the battle walked into town. They would bring the most prominent person from the town or wherever it was, and they would fling them down before him. And you better be licking dirt or you're a dead man. So everybody was licking dirt. In case you're wondering where I got that phrase, look up those 3 verses that I just gave you, because it literally says that. They shall lick the dust before thy feet. You say, what is this? This is a picture of the millennial reign of Christ. We haven't gotten there, that's a ways down the road. Worship before. Now, you know how I feel about grammar, but it's important. Before means in the presence of. He doesn't say worship at your feet. There's only one person that deserves worship, and His name's God. So He's not saying that they are worshiping us. They are saying they are worshiping before them. Now, worship can be used in 2 different ways. The first one is spiritual homage, like you would worship a God. The second is constrained to show honor and respect. And so if you walked in before a king, you would bow before him. Not that you were worshiping him, but that you were showing him honor and respect. And as I was studying, 5 or 6 different commentaries are arguing about this. Listen, Sometimes we argue about the dumbest stuff because both things are going to happen, right? Who are we ruling and reigning with during the millennial period? Okay, so if Jesus Christ is here and he's got all these folks that are lined up around him, when they come in before Jesus Christ, what are they going to do? They're going to bow at his feet. They're going to be worshiping him in our presence. But because we are duly ordained authority of Jesus Christ, what do they have to do? They have to recognize your honor and position, do they not? They have. Both things happen. Both things happen. If you are ruling and reigning with him, if they disobey your authority, whose authority have they really disobeyed? His. And what Jesus is saying is, listen, these folks are so proud and they're so haughty. You've got all these government officials who are trying to get you involved in this Caesar worship. Do you realize that there is coming a time where they are going to parade before you and they are going to worship before you? They're going to be worshiping him in our presence. And they're going to know, oh my goodness, I was so wrong. He goes on. In verse 10 he says, and they will know that I have loved thee. What? What's the big deal about knowing that I have loved thee? Verse 9, I think it is. Well, think about it. When you get to the millennial kingdom, what's going to be important? Only Jesus Christ. That's it. All worldly governments are gone. All worldly values are gone. Everything that folks compete over and think that they're special over, all of the things that divide folks, nationalities aren't going to matter. Racism isn't going to matter. Nothing matters anymore in the millennial kingdom. The only thing that matters is Jesus Christ. If he is foremost and preeminent about everything, and you're standing there, and these folks are standing in judgment, and they are having to submit to his law and his reign, and he's loving on you, do you see what he's saying? You may have been neglected while you were patiently enduring and while you were keeping my word. But there's coming a time when they will know that I loved you. You are the favored ones. You are the ones that will be in positions of authority and respect and honor. But he goes on because he has another phrase here in verse 10 that's very interesting. Because thou hast kept the word of my patience, I also will keep thee from the hour of temptation. Now, when you talk about arguments and commentaries, good grief. Here we go with more grammar, sorry. It's talking about the church not going through the tribulation period. There are three camps, I guess you will, of the church. Pre-tribulation, rapture happens before the tribulation. Mid-tribulation, it happens at the 3.5 year period when they get ready to offer the sacrifice in there, and then things really, really get bad. And then you have post-tribulation. And post-tribulation says that basically God protects the church through the tribulation period, and then he raptures them afterwards. Don't mean to step on anybody's toes. That's about as ignorant as you can get. I don't know how you can read God's word and get post-tribulation. For this reason, people are martyred during the tribulation period. They are killing saints left and right. Horrible, horrible persecutions of those who come to Jesus Christ during the tribulation period. I'm not sure what kind of deliverance through that is. But all of that aside, let's look at the words for a minute. Keep from is a combination of two words, tereo, ek. Ek means out from or away from. Think of Noah on the ark before the flood, not in the middle of the flood or after the flood. Think of Lot being delivered out of Sodom before the fire and brimstone fell, not in the middle of the fire and brimstone, and certainly not afterwards. He didn't huddle in his house while the whole town was burnt with fire and brimstone, and then he stepped up and walked out, that's hot. No. In the Bible, God delivers his people before these huge judgments come. What kind of a loving Savior would he be if he made you go through that and then said, oh yeah, by the way, come to the marriage supper of the Lamb? There are two other words in the Greek. En means in, and dia means through. So if he meant that he was going to keep them in the tribulation, or he was going to keep them through the tribulation, he would have either used en for in it, or dia for through it. But he used ek, which means out from or away. There's only one other time in the whole Bible that these two words are used. That's it. That's it. One time. We're going there. John 17:15. He is praying for his disciples, and he says, I pray not that thou shouldest take them out of the world, but thou shouldest tereo ek from the evil. Now listen, is Jesus Christ asking God to keep us in the evil? Does that make any sense biblically? Is he asking us to be delivered as we go through evil? No. He is saying, I'm not asking you to take them out of the world where they won't ever suffer persecution, but I'm asking you to keep them away from the evil one. Keep saying away from them. He does not ever say in his word that it's going to be a bed of roses and that everything's going to be easy and sweet. No, he doesn't say that. He says if they hated me, they're going to hate you. He obviously tells his disciples over and over and over again in the Gospels that there's going to be persecution and there's going to be tough times. So he's not telling them that God's going to deliver them from the tough times. If he says, keep them from the evil one, why would he turn around and say, deliver them through the tribulation? You're keeping them completely away from one with one word, and the only other time you're going to use it in the New Testament, you're going to mean in or through. No, it just doesn't happen. Now, really quickly, because my wife says I preach too long. Keep them. There's some interesting things that we learn here about this period of time. I will keep thee from, number one, the tribulation is a limited period of time. It says the hour. It doesn't mean the word here is period of time. Okay? From the hour of temptation, which means there's going to be a starting point and there's going to be a stopping point. And a lot of the rest of this book is about the starting point all the way through to the stopping point. And he gives us time. He gives us period. It's only a limited time. Notice also that this thing that he's keeping them out of or away from says, which shall come upon all the world. What other tribulation happens that involves the entire world other than the flood? I mean, there have been some pretty heavy judgments that have happened around the world. But the only two times I know that are going to involve the whole world until we come to the time where it passes away at the end is the flood, which was worldwide, and the tribulation period, which is going to be like the flood worldwide. And then it's interesting because he goes on and notice that he gives us reason why. To try them that dwell upon the earth. To try means to examine and to test. Now, notice, it doesn't say the unsaved. It doesn't say the saved. All it does is limit it to those that are still alive on the earth at the start of the tribulation period. It is a time of examining, trying, and testing those that are alive when the tribulation period starts. What an incredible promise to them. Listen, they're enduring a great deal, and Jesus Christ says, when it gets down and it's my turn to try and test, and it's not their turn to trying and testing you, I promise you, you're not not going to be here for that. Instead, when the millennial reign happens, you're going to be reigning with me, and the folks that were doing this are going to be parading before you, and they're going to be worshiping before you at Jesus' feet. What an incredible blessing. He gives them some advice. Verse 11. Behold, I come quickly. Hold that fast which thou hast, that no man may take thy crown. Now, when he comes this time, this coming quickly is not in punishment like some of the other churches. He's coming with reward. What's the reward? He has a crown, the crown of life. What is the crown of life? Go to James chapter 1, verse 12. James 1:12. Blessed is the man that endureth temptation, for when he is tried, he shall receive the crown of life, which the Lord hath promised to them that love him. Okay? So, it doesn't tell me what the crown is. Go to Matthew chapter 10. Matthew chapter 10, he spells it right out for them, which he had to do often for the disciples, because they didn't get it. You know what? I'm really glad for that, because I'm the same way. Ye shall be hated for my name's sake, but he that endureth to the end shall be saved. Endurance equals salvation. In the Greek, it doesn't say crown of life. It means crown of eternal life. In other words, it's not that I get to wear something. I get eternal life in heaven with him if I endure to the end. And all the folks that have turned on him and blasphemed him and renounced his name, no, they don't get eternal life. They get eternal damnation. Very, very important statement here as he encourages them to remain faithful. Make sure nobody steals your crown, nobody steals your eternal life because you get tired and you give up. Now in verse 12, he's going to give them a couple of pillars, or he's going to give them a couple things that really help them because it's practical. This is where they live and breathe. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense to us at first when we read through it. Him that overcometh will I make a pillar in the temple of my God. Pillars were used for two things: stability and for honor and standing. If you wanted to, we don't have time to turn. There are a couple of places in the Old Testament they built pillars and they named them certain things, and it was important. Actually, some of the pillars in the temple were named for great people in Israel's history. You did that to honor them. This would be Abraham's pillar. This would be so-and-so's pillar. This would be so-and-so's pillar. And there's one example, and we don't have the time to turn there either, where in the New Testament, the church is starting to spread out from Jerusalem, and the Holy Spirit is coming upon the Gentiles, and the Jews are shocked about this. And so some of the disciples leave, and they go up, and Philip's up here ministering, and it says, and James and John, and, can't remember who the other one is, comes with them, and they seem to be pillars of what? Of the church. You say, why were they pillars? Because they were the stability of the church, and they were also the honorable ones of the church. When I grew up, they used to say, when E.F. Hutton speaks and all of a sudden the commercial would get quiet, people would stop riding their bikes and everybody would be listening. What does E.F. Hutton have to say? This is the best financial advice in the whole world. Does E.F. Hutton even exist anymore? I don't think so. Listen, Paul would be writing to him, and folks would be saying, that Paul, he said, whoa, I am as a disciple out of time. What was he saying? I am a pillar of the church by God's design, not by my own design. I don't speak with my authority, I speak with his authority. And what he's telling these folks is, you live in a little bitty town that gets racked by volcanoes and earthquakes. Your town was destroyed and rebuilt. And for years, they would sleep outside of the town because they were afraid of being in there. And he says, listen, with all the instability going on in your life, I just want you to know that when you overcome and endure, I am going to make you a pillar in heaven. You are going to have stability. And then to emphasize it a little more, look what he says. And he shall go no more out. Listen, when you're in heaven, you don't have to worry about running outside of heaven to sleep at night because you're afraid of what's going to happen. You see what he's saying? He is using a practical situation in which they lived every day. And he's saying, the insecurities of everyday life are gone. You wait, folks. When you overcome and you get to heaven, it will be worth it all. The promise is of stability and security of heaven. He goes on and he says, I am going to give you a new name. And it's interesting because he's going to actually give them 3 names. I will write upon him the name of my God. It shows ownership. It also shows an intimate relationship. You remember when you were kids when you got a special toy, what'd you do? You wrote your name or initials on it somewhere, didn't you? Then you walk up there and you pick up that toy, and wrote on Woody's, bottom of Woody's shoe, Andy. And every once in a while when things got tough, he'd pick up his little shoe and he'd look at it because he was Andy's favorite toy. I know that minimalizes it, but that's what he's doing here. I am going to write on you my name. You belong to me. Everyone will know it. And we have a special relationship. But it gets better because he says, I am going to write on you the name of the city. That's citizenship. You want to go home tonight and look it up? It happens in Revelation chapter 21 with the New Jerusalem descending from heaven. If I go to another country, they want to ask me all kinds of questions. Where do you live? They look at your picture. They look at your passport. Well, what are you doing here? How long are you going to be here? When do you expect to come back? When I come back into the United States, you know what they tell you? You ever traveled outside the country? It's really cool. You come back from another country and they look and they check all your credentials, and when they hand them back to you, they say, welcome home. That's what they say. Doesn't matter where it is that you're coming into the country, that's what the officials say. They hand you back your passport after they verify that you are a citizen of the United States. They look you in the eyes and they say, welcome home. Home. You know what God says? You've been putting up with a lot of stuff, Church of Philadelphia. Chill. It's going to be okay. Don't get worked up. Wait it out. Because I'm going to be standing there someday, I'm going to say, welcome home. You don't have to run outside anymore. There's going to be peace and security. But if that's not good enough, he adds a third one to it. And he says, I am going to write my new name. What's the new name? I don't know. And actually, when we look later in Revelation, he talks about the new name, but he doesn't tell us the new name. You know why? Because he's not ready to tell us yet. It's not time. He is going to write a new name on us, and it is the fullness of his person. We're going to close with 1 John 3:2. Can you imagine him writing this to the Church of Philadelphia? Beloved, now we are the sons of God, and it doth not yet appear what we shall be. But we know that when he shall appear, we shall be like him, for we shall see him as he is. That's what he's telling them. Don't let someone steal your crown. If you overcome, I am going to write my name on you, and everyone will know who you belong to. And I'm going to give you citizenship in heaven. And I am going to show myself to you in a way that you can't even come close to comprehending with your little finite mind. But someday, when my sanctification is complete in heaven, I am going to know him even as I am known. And I can't imagine. I just simply can't imagine what it's going to be like. His urging is in verse 14, the same thing that he writes to all the 7 churches. He that hath an ear, you better be paying attention. This church in Philadelphia has been faithful. They're little, and they're enduring stuff. But they have an opportunity given by me. And someday, people are going to bow before them, and someday they are going to enjoy all these benefits in heaven. Listen, of all the churches we studied so far, I want to be Philadelphia. I don't want to be a dead one. I want to be Philadelphia. Staying faithful, gang. Let's pray. Father, thank you for your word. And although at times this book can be complicated and difficult, it is so amazing, so encouraging,